Hey there guys. So yeah, Maxi Hughes versus George Kambosos. Good fight. And it's a lot more competitive than the popular narrative would have you believe. Now obviously George Kambosos is the former undisputed champion. So he is very highly regarded by a lot of boxing fans. But I don't really rate George Kambosos that highly, to be honest. I think his situation with the undisputed was more or less manufactured. I mean, you have Teofimo Lopez, who became undisputed with a victory over Lomachenko, but Lomachenko literally did nothing in the first 6 rounds, and it didn't even look like he really tried to win the fight, considering he only came on in the 7th really, and lost the decision. And then you had Teofimo Lopez, who in his fight against George Kambosos, he didn't look very good in that fight, and after the fight he said he had certain medical conditions which hampered his preparation and his performance and whatnot. And Teo has looked a lot better in other fights, like he looked a lot better against Josh Taylor, for example. So maybe it was just a case of Kambosos catching him at the right time, if the medical conditions are true and whatnot. So Kambosos, yeah, I believe his undisputed run was a bit manufactured, and he's a bit overrated. And obviously, because Maxi Hughes has losses at domestic level to Martin Ward, Sam Bowen and Liam Walsh, people think Maxi Hughes is just some bum who's got 5 losses on his record and Kambosos should go through him easily. What I will say is Maxi Hughes, since he's been training with Sean O'Hagan, has improved a lot. He's a lot better than when he fought guys like Martin Ward, for example. I think if you said to anyone back then that Maxi Hughes would beat Kid Galahad, for example, I don't think anyone would have believed it. So yeah, he's definitely made big strides in his career, and he's a lot better now than he was in the past. And obviously Maxi Hughes isn't that highly regarded because he's only been the IBO champion, which isn't really a real world title, but I digress. So yeah, it's an even fight in my opinion. It will be a close fight. I definitely think this one goes the distance. Neither guy has really got a lot of power at world level. I mean, George Kambosos usually goes the distance. He went the distance against Lee Selby, Teo. He went the distance against Haney twice, Mickey Bay. So he usually goes the distance when he reaches a certain level. And Maxi Hughes has only got 5 knockouts in his career, and he always goes the distance as well in his big fights. So this is definitely a fight that will go the distance. I think Maxi Hughes will give George Kambosos a lot of problems, because I believe Maxi Hughes is quite underrated and he's got a lot more boxing skill than people give him credit for. Obviously Maxi Hughes is a southpaw. He has very good boxing skills, quite good defense, quite good movement. And we've seen George Kambosos have problems with sort of boxers in the past. I mean, his fight against Lee Selby, for example, that was a very close fight, in my opinion. And Lee Selby was washed up at that point, and he was never a lightweight to begin with. I mean, you saw what that Argentinian guy, I can't remember his name, did to Lee Selby in his last fight. He stopped him in 5 rounds. So if a guy like that's giving you problems, I think Maxi Hughes will give George Kambosos a lot of problems. And Maxi Hughes has shown good defense in fights like the Straffon fight, where he was fighting a tough Mexican puncher, and he used his high guard well, stayed defensively sound. And yeah, I think Kambosos' style will play into Maxi Hughes' hands, the way he comes forward, and he tends to throw punches with poor technique. When he throws his combinations especially, he leaves himself wide open, and Maxi Hughes will take advantage of that by putting straight punches through the middle. Kambosos will obviously have his fair share of success. I mean, he throws a lot of punches in fights, and obviously if you throw a lot of punches you're going to land at some point. So he can definitely outwork Maxi Hughes, because Maxi isn't he hasn't got the highest volume. He's more of a guy who picks his shots as opposed to throwing a lot of punches. And I think it's likely that this fight will be very close. It'll be sort of 7-5 or 8-4 either way, whichever way it goes. But I think it's likely that George Kambosos will win this fight via close decision. Probably a close and controversial decision. George Kambosos is Top Rank's new signing. He's obviously the former undisputed champion, so he's got that name value. People will really, if a guy like, Shakur Stevenson, for example, beats George Kambosos, people will see that as a very good win, just because of who George Kambosos is. And I think it's likely that if the fight's close, which I think it will be, he'll get the decision. There's no doubt about that. And I don't think Maxi Hughes will make the fight wide enough for him to, get the decision. I don't think he will absolutely school Kambosos or anything like that. So yeah, I'm going with George Kambosos to win this fight. But I think it's a fight where he will look very awkward. And Maxi Hughes will have his moments, but Kambosos will just outwork him in certain rounds, and maybe he'll do enough, maybe he won't, but I think he'll get the decision regardless. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and God bless.